Today we will be going through a simple process account where there won't be any normal loss scenarios and where there won't be any opening or closing work in progress. So question 1, the cost of production for 50 units consisting of 50 units of material being rupees 2500, labor being 1500 and overhead being rupees 500. There is no any normal loss in this production process, and the question is show the process account and calculate the cost per unit. So it should be clear to you that they are asking you two things. They are asking you to do two things in this question. First is to show the process account for this particular process and to calculate the cost per unit. Now here when they say cost per unit, they are referring to the cost per each output unit. Alright. Now when you read through this question, you should understand that the input related information are very basic. So they only have material which is 2500, labor only 1500 and overhead only rupees 500. On to the output side, there is no any loss incurred, no normal loss and no any actual loss reported as well. And it seems that production or the input is equal to output. They have used 50 units of material to produce 50 units of output. So input is equal to output in this particular question. So with that understanding, let's go through the format of a process account. So a process account should typically look like this. Onto your left hand side of the process account, you must mention information or details regarding to the input of a particular process. Then onto the right hand side of the process account, you should include information regarding the output of a particular process. So we did go through the types of input and output in our previous video. I will link it here. Just revisit that video as well to get more clarity. And as I mentioned before, there should be two columns on either sides of this particular account. One column to denote units, one column to denote the amount. And both columns on either sides should balance with each other for your process account to be complete. So this is the process account for the question that we just discussed. In this question, we didn't have any opening work in progress. So opening work in progress is 0 in terms of units and 0 in terms of amount. They did mention that direct material has been used. So under direct material, they have specified the units used in the question. So it will be 50 mentioned here and the amount is 2500 and you will include that over here. Next we had direct labor. So in direct labor they have not mentioned units, it was only an amount. So units will be 0 and amount will be 1500. Similarly, even for overheads, units was not mentioned, so it will be 0 as well. But amount was given as 500. So you will include it over here. Not only for this question, for almost all the questions, they don't mention units for conversion cost for direct labor and overhead. They will usually only include units for direct material. Remember that. So after you enter these details, don't rush in and try to balance the left hand side of the process account. Just leave it as it is and you will move on to the right hand side of the process account. Now here the details to be included are all relating to the output of the process. Now here it's final output and they have clearly mentioned the output quantity to be 50 units. So you will mention it here as 50. But the question doesn't state the amount or the value of this output. They are actually asking you to calculate the cost per unit of output. So temporarily in this particular column, you will not have an amount to mention. Okay. So next we will have normal loss. So the question clearly says that there is no any normal loss in this question. So it will be 0 in units and 0 in amounts. And question also says there is no any work in progress. So 0 in units and 0 in amount for closing work in progress as well. Now, once you enter all these information, just through glance, you can see that the units column are automatically balancing with each other. That's what you need to actually check first after you enter all the details. First, you're trying to balance your units column. So you can see 50 onto the left hand side, 50 onto the right hand side. So your units column is tallying. Moment your units column match with each other, next you will sum the amount column which is onto your left hand side. So you will try to find the total cost of inputs. You might not directly enter here. Now the addition of all these three is 4500. Let's assume the units column don't tally. You cannot write the amount here directly, which means that there is some, it can be an abnormal loss or abnormal gain. So when we move along, you will learn that as well. But for now, because the units column tally with each other or balance with each other, you can directly mention the total cost of input over here. Now, for you to find the amount or the value of the output, you have to use this formula which we have given here. Cost per unit. Now, for you to find the cost per unit, you need to know the cost of inputs, and from this you will have to minus any scrap value. If you have any loss items and you are selling them as scrap and earning some nominal income, you have to deduct that. You cannot charge your customer for that income as well. Okay, so you have to remove that from the cost of input. This answer that you get after excluding the scrap value is then divided by the expected output in units. So expected output will be the total inputs which you have used in this production, and you will exclude the normal loss in terms of units. Now in this question, total cost of inputs is 4500. Now you don't have any normal loss, so you don't have a scrap value in this question. So directly your numerator will be 4500. Now this has to be divided by the expected output. To find expected output, you need to have the total input in units, which is 50 units. Now from 50 units you have to minus the normal loss in units. Here that will be 0. So your denominator will be 50, which means the cost per unit is directly 90 rupees per completed output unit. Okay, so knowing this answer, you could directly find the amount over here. So for 50 units, 1 unit being 90 rupees in cost. So for 50 units, they would have incurred 4500 as the cost. What I recommend for students to do is, when you write the narration here as output and you get the amount, please make sure to mention the working here. You can mention it as 50 units multiplied by 90. I am saying this because in case you make an error in this calculation, let's say you made an error here, mention it as 100, you will definitely lose marks for this particular formula. But let's say you use the same 100 over here to calculate the amount of the output. You would not get penalized again. For one mistake, you get penalized only once. So you will still get a full mark or the marks that is allocated for this particular answer. So make sure you include your working in detail. Alright. So with that, we are done with today's video. Thank you so much for listening in. Subscribe for learning business for more videos.